running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans. Welcome to Talking in Ovals. How's everybody doing out there on this Monday, April 8th, 2024, episode 83? Partner in crime hanging out over there, Dave Hyatt, my brother. What's going on?
I just want to know what's going on in Peru that we're not sending a U20 team to the World Championships. It seems very, very odd. Like, it's just weird that we're just not sending a whole team of people who have qualified.
Yeah, and it takes away a big meet for a lot of our future stars to really compete on the world stage against other future stars. And I mean, it's like some of them are in college, some of them are pre-college, so
or
high school and things like that. So I'm sure more will come out. I'm sure, the great Jonathan Galt will probably have something soon, because if you want something on that pro stage, Jonathan has it. Well, one of our buddies. So yeah, we'll find out. Maybe we'll reach out to Jonathan and see if he has anything. We might do a special show, have him jump on, give us some inside information. But before we get into all that fun stuff, Dave, we got to let everybody know that is watching on YouTube, that is watching on X. Thank you very much. Number one, if you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe, tell all your friends. If you are watching on X, please repost this, let everyone know, because we are going to have another great show as always. And also spread this word of mouth. Find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. So last week we had a fun show. We talked to Matt Ludwig, and we talked for significantly longer, and I think we even intended to.
Yeah.
But the conversation was just so much fun. It was hard not to. He is extremely knowledgeable about pole vaulting, and, was an Olympian in 2021 in Tokyo, looking to do it again. So we're excited for him. And, we just got great things going on. We have a PR, though. Another one. This is from a former guest of ours. He is a part of this Trackstar.me Olympic Dream series that we're doing. He was our first guest, and unfortunately he wasn't on the live stream. He was our guest right before we started live streaming, but we will have him back on. He's Justin Stafford. He was over at Wichita State University, and he had his first PR of the season in the hammer. He threw it 73.25 meters for us Americans over here. That is 240 feet, 3 inches, and it was in his opener on March 29th, so he was nice enough to share that with us. Justin, if you're watching, hello. Leave us a chat. Say hi. But
great job.
Yeah, awesome job. Congrats. Keep it up. 73.25, that's child's play. You got better than that. Come on, man. Let's get to 74. I'm kidding. Justin's probably looking at this going like, dude, that was really difficult. But no, we're pumped. We're always pumped when our former guests do great things like that. So yeah, Justin, awesome job. We're looking forward to seeing you at the Olympics, the trials, all that stuff. So we're going to jump into this week's show, and we have a fun one ready for everybody. It is another person that is a part of the Trackstar.me Olympic Dream Series, and it is someone that is, another one of our USA athletes that is on the cusp, on the precipice right there, and is hoping to actualize her dream, because she is our first female member of this, collective looking to do this crowdfunding, and she's a fantastic one to start off our ladies in the series. She is Elena Bruckner. She is a pro shot put and discus thrower, and as you heard, Olympic hopeful. Elena, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going? Hi, Alex. Hi, Dave. Excited to be on the podcast.
Thank you. We're excited to have you on, and like we said, you have a lot of pressure on you. You're the first young lady that we've had from the series, so you got to show out for the ladies here.
Oh, absolutely. Show out, I will.
I love it.
So I want to get going right away with you. We ask every single guest the same question, and the reason why we ask it is because we always get a different and awesome answer. So when did you get the spark to become a thrower? When was that moment that you picked up, your first implement, or someone convinced you to do a throw, and then you're like, wow, this is great? When did you get the spark to continue with it and do it?
Yeah. So when I was I'll go back even slightly further. And when I was a little kid, probably from the age of 6, whenever people asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? Some people say doctor, pilot, president. I said Olympian. I had no clue what the different sports were. I think at the time I was doing gymnastics, but I always knew that something about it, I was drawn to the Olympics, and that's where I wanted to be. I really felt called, and I was like, this is where I'm going to be. So I did pretty much every sport growing up, just kind of really trying to figure out my niche. And track and field was, one of those. I think I first picked up a shot put when I was in 5th or 6th grade. It was track season. They said, hey, you need someone to do the shot put. I said, I'm strong, I'm competitive, let me give it a go. And I wouldn't necessarily call myself a natural. I definitely wasn't, but I was strong enough and I could figure out how to put the shot instead of throw it. So I enjoyed that in middle school. And then once I got to high school, I decided to hone down my sports to just volleyball and track. And we had a throws coach that said, Elena, I want you to take this seriously. Forget high jump, forget the hurdles. I think you should focus on throwing. And with discus specifically, I really didn't start to take that seriously until my sophomore year. I was very anti-spin my freshman year and just wanted to do a stand throw. And sophomore year, I said, okay, fine, I'll give it a real go. I'll try to learn it.
Is there something scary about doing your first spin? Because I know, in shot, you're doing the glide, and disc, a lot of times you stand at the edge and you just kind of do the rotation, right? Mm-hmm. When you're learning, is there something a little terrifying about that first time that you're kind of just in a rotation? And I mean, how much control you have that first time that you're doing it?
Yeah, I think it definitely was scary. And as somebody who has kind of always been able to figure things out and figure out how to be good at them, I've always been a natural athlete. I could always figure out a sport. And I think that's why it made me uncomfortable more than scared, because it wasn't something that right off the bat I was able to figure out. And so, I definitely tried it when I was, a freshman, but I was like, this is uncomfortable. This is weird. I don't want to do it.
So one quick question. You mentioned something real important, I think, about shot put. You said that you were figured out quickly how to put it instead of throw it.
Yeah.
Talk to the layman's out there, including Dave and myself. What is the difference between putting a shot and throwing a shot?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's called a throw, but you are not actually using a throwing motion, leading with your elbow with the shot put. Yep. Shot put is significantly heavier than a baseball or even a javelin. A javelin has that similar elbow leading throw motion. But if you try to do that with a shot put, you're going to pull something real quick. So putting it is a lot closer to the movement you do with a push-up. I actually used that as an example at a kids run, jump, throw clinic I did a little over a month ago. And I was like, oh, this is it. Because it's really easy to just want to throw it. But that's an easy way to hurt yourself. And it doesn't technically count. You can get disqualified that way. Not that it happens for most people watching throws at this level.
Right.
I mean, that's it. It's exciting. I think it's a good distinguishing thing, because a lot of people probably look at the shot put and they're thinking, oh, because you're using your arm and launching it, it's a throw. No. And it is different. It is a different motion. So I am curious with this, because what brings a lot of young ladies into throwing, right? Because I know a lot of guys, typically it's your lineman, right, in football, or your centers in basketball, and they're dedicated to the weight room anyway. So a weight coach is like, hey, I'm also the throws coach. Come throw for me. You'll get ready for football, blah, blah, blah. And I don't see as much, maybe if you're a big in basketball, that might translate. Yeah. But outside of that, what have you found? Because I know you said you had a coach, you were just trying everything, but in your experience and other young ladies you've been around, what brought them to throwing? Because I feel like there's not as much of that pipeline through sports to identify female throwers and things like that.
Yeah, I think what I saw pretty commonly in high school was that basketball pipeline on the ladies' side.
Yeah.
I think one of my best teammates in high school, Ronna Stone, who ended up going to University of Oregon a year ahead of me. Nice. She came from basketball and ended up sort of going into throwing because she was out a lot from her injuries from basketball. And so I think that's usually the typical sport I saw coming over. But I think honestly, a lot of the people I was around in high school throwing were people that were just looking for community. Yeah. I think track is, for better or for worse, especially at the high school level, can come in as sort of this social sport where it's easier to kind of, find your niche. A lot of times there's no cuts. And so you find a lot of people, and throwers are the ones that don't have to run most of the time. But also have a really great community, and you spend a lot of time standing around along with your practice and your drills. And so I think you got a lot of folks that maybe didn't even have other athletic background and experience. And not necessarily those are the ones that are, taking it super seriously, going to college, going to the Olympics. But that's a lot of who I see, starting off in the throws community in those earlier years.
And that completely and totally makes sense with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's also one thing I do want to end. I think we need women's football. I think we need to get women's football in there so, we can start identifying those linemen to become throwers and things like that. Would you have played football if it was available to you?
I played my fair share of powder puff in high school before our volleyball coach, cut us out of it because it got pretty ruthless. But
now they have flags. Like now they have flags, but I'd like to.
My school has it, yeah. My school has
the ladies. Like I don't care if you even do a smaller field or whatever you want to do. They ready to do smaller field for flag. Throw some pads on the ladies and let them hit.
I would have been all over it because powder puff football is essentially flag football that you do during homecoming week. But they don't have the same rules. No. And my freshman year, we were up against the seniors. I flipped a girl over my shoulder. Like I was all about it.
You let them know that you were there and you were ready to go.
I'm here to compete.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want you to go down memory lane with us real quick. I want you to think back about, that time when you started throwing back in the day, all the way to where you are now. And kind of walk us through some of your favorite memories of being a thrower, some of your greatest memories, some of your greatest trials and tribulations, things that made you challenge yourself and all. Like, give us some of your best, top, worst spots that you've been in.
Yeah. I'll pick a couple, and I'll say I think the earlier ones are definitely more shot put focused because I really didn't, see myself as a discus thrower until my junior year of high school. But I remember when I was first throwing in middle school. We had a student who was 2 years older than me. I think he was just starting off in high school and he was throwing up at the high school, but his dad was the middle school coach. Yeah. So he would come back and help out. And he took me aside and he said, I'm going to teach you this glide. Not that he knew all that much, but it was one step up from a stand throw. And he's like, you've got this. Like, I'm going to teach you this, next level technique. And that
adds a good amount of distance, right? When you go from absolutely. The momentum it adds is very significant.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think just having somebody being so competitive and wanting to excel at a high level in anything that I do, having somebody that recognized that drive in me and said, yeah, I'm going to feed that even at such a small level. That's something I'll never forget. And I don't know if that person even know I exist anymore or remembers those moments, but it's small, silly little things like that.
He better find out again because you're about to be on TV in the Olympics and everything. Right. So I think he better look back at that and be like, hey, I taught her first glide.
Yeah, we'll see.
Come on, friends, Dad. Let's go.
Man. Yeah, that was back in the Wisconsin days. I've lived kind of all over, so that was way back when. But I think even just looking at high school, when I first started throwing, maybe it was my freshman year, I was throwing mid 30 feet. Which, I was pretty happy with as a freshman in high school. That was pretty solid.
Pretty good. Mid-30, that's pretty damn good.
Very solid, yeah.
And you're pretty happy there's seniors that don't throw mid-30.
Yes, yeah, I think, yeah. But, I was throwing 30. I think 36 was the furthest I threw my freshman year, 36 feet. But my teammate, Rana, and I had heard about a girl in our conference, in our area, who was throwing 40 feet. And we were like, bullshit. There's no way.
I love that.
Feet, that's impossible. And this is back in the day when, Instagram had first come out, but we weren't following people we didn't know. We weren't getting exposure to things like this. And so we were like, there's no.
You're saying Instagram had just come out. Dave was basically right at the precipice of internet. I was MySpace, and you're going Instagram had just come out, and you have two old guys here, that it's I remember the good old days.
I did sign up for a Facebook account when I turned 13, so Facebook was still the thing. No, I missed out on MySpace, but I was all in on Facebook.
Yeah, that's awesome. So sorry, continue.
Yeah, but I guess that sort of figures out where I'm at now. But we didn't know, you heard something about it, but we were like, I've got to see this for myself. Right. And I remember when the first time I saw somebody throw 40 feet, and it was it just opened up this whole new brain space of what was possible. And me and my teammate Rana were like, oh, if she can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
And like, we just egged each other on all throughout high school in the shot put and the discus. And like, I would not be who I am today without her and without that competitiveness and challenging ourselves to get to that next level. And it all came from one person showing us what was possible.
Right.
And I think that 100% that's what we were doing and what we were trying to do in high school was how much more can I push that limit? Can I push that bar to show the girls below me, younger than me coming up, what's possible? And I think even looking down at the girls that came up after me directly and years later, like we had multiple girls at one time throwing 40 feet at our high school.
Wow.
And I can remember back to my freshman year when I'm like, there's no way that's even a real thing that somebody's doing that. So I think that, just still carrying over to what I'm doing today, it's like, I just did a discus clinic yesterday out at UC Berkeley. And, a coach said to me, like, it's so important for these athletes to see you guys throw far because they've never seen somebody throw more than, 35, 40 meters. And so to be able to see it in life, sometimes it just clicks and your brain opens and you see like what's possible. And it's just such a game changer.
And go ahead, Dave.
So you ended up having a very good high school career, 2 top 10 throws in the history of our country. So talk a little bit about that and what went into the choice of going to Texas.
Yeah. High school was awesome. High school was sweet. I mean, I just continued to surprise myself, honestly. I had a really great throws coach who was also a football coach, but happened to throw a little bit, in college too. And so somebody that probably knew more than most high school throws coaches, thankfully. And he was great. He helped shape me a lot. But when I really took off, my junior year, our high school got like a new strength and conditioning coach whose dad happened to be a U.S. Olympic shot putter.
Wow.
Named Greg Tafralis.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, it was just like kismet. And there was all this drama between him and our high school coach. And so, I basically had to deal with 2 coaches and whatever. It all worked out. But I think when I started working with Greg, both Rana and I worked with Greg, and he really just like, again, it's that getting exposure to what's possible.
Yeah.
And he just really taught us to believe in ourselves and believe that we could do crazy things and dream big. And I mean, with shot put, like that was my first love. I don't think I ever really felt or thought that I was going to be able to break the national record in shot put. I think that was pretty far out there. I threw pretty far,
Yeah.
but that was something else. I mean, I remember hearing when Raven Saunders first broke that, I was like, oop, good for you, girl. I'm going to stay where I am, stay in my lane, But I was able to break the California high school state record in the shot put, which was pretty
quick
cool.
Question with that though.
Yeah.
Looking back at it now, you saw what Raven was doing and it was like, you get this, you go girl. And now here you are trying to compete to be one of the 3 representatives from the United States with a real good chance at doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to go compete at the highest pinnacle at that point in your life. I know you said your goal was to be an Olympian, but was there kind of a little bit of self-doubt as you're seeing Raven set this incredible record and you're sitting there kind of like staying where you are? And like, was there a point there where you're just like, well, shit, this is hard?
Yeah. I think, honestly, when I was finishing up in high school, no, I was very confident. I was not cocky, but I was very confident in my abilities and my trajectory and what I had going for me. And also at that point, I didn't necessarily think that I was going to be going in shot put. I think it was pretty clear to me, I was, I think sort of going back and forth between number 1 and number 2 in the US in shot put my junior and senior year, but I was a pretty clear standout in the discus. There was a pretty big gap both my junior and senior year between me and the next best girl. And I felt really excited and confident about that. So, I think I definitely felt like I was a lesser known athlete because people weren't really paying attention to the throws, specifically the women's throws.
Yeah.
But I felt very confident in where I was and where I was going. And I think with discus on that side, like I even remember leading up to my senior year was leading up to an Olympic year. And there was a time at which Mile Split tweeted, hey, track athletes, like post your New Year's resolution, retweet this with your New Year's resolution for track. And I said, I'm going to make the Olympic trials. And I was in high school. I had no reason to believe that I was going to make the Olympic trials in high school. And I was going to have to throw further in order to make it. But I put that out there into the universe, into the Twitterverse. And I ended up making the Olympic trials.
That's incredible.
As a senior in high school. And I was the only, I believe I was the only high schooler to make the Olympic trials in any of the throwing events, as far as I know that year. I know there were a couple other high schoolers in other events, but I was the only high schooler in the throws.
So 2 things. Number 1, I want you to help us out in terms of, you said that you had no exposure in high school, right? Help us out. If you see a young lady, because Dave and I, we're getting better with the throws and stuff in the field events now that we've had a whole bunch of you guys on, but our noses aren't to the ground as much because there's so much to do, right? If you see any standout young ladies on that ground level, let us know. Yeah. And if you can connect us, let us know, because then we want to try and get the exposure. That's part of the goal here, to get them, to have them jump on if you have a connection. So feed them our way. That's number 1. Number 2, talk to us about what that experience was like being at the Olympic trials.
Yeah,
as a high schooler, what were the pros like to you while you were there? Were they inviting? Were they threatened? Like what was that whole experience like? Give us a whole entire rundown.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'll tell you how I got in. I mean, I knew what the standard was. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I knew what the standard was, and I knew I wanted to get that. Yeah. My coach had purchased a steel measuring tape, so that we could really, when I had that big throw, we could mark it as accurate as possible, because those high school tapes get real stretched out and the marks at that distance can get real inaccurate. So we had bought this steel tape, but when I had that big throw, we didn't realize it was that far until they had marked it and picked up the mark. So we didn't even get to measure it with a steel tape. So we probably missed a couple of inches on that throw. That mark was measured 2 centimeters short of the Olympic trial standard. Ugh. So with the trials, you automatically get in with the standard, or if not enough people make the standard, they have a field size they have to fill.
Yep.
So I was entered for the trials, and I did not find out that I officially made it until about a week before.
Wow.
Talk about being sick to your stomach.
Where was it at? Hayward?
These goals. Yep. It was at Hayward. Yeah.
But you know what, though? I feel like part of that might be a blessing, though, right? Because you're a high schooler, and say you would have found out a month early,
it'd be just in your brain all the time.
You may have put on yourself, and I don't care who you are. You could be cool as a cucumber, national stage, the whole time in high school. But the moment you're being told, like, hey, I'm going up against the best in the world, the best in the country. Like, I think maybe that week, it might have been a blessing for a high schooler at that time, where it's like, you don't have the time to be scared. It's just, get off the pot. Let's go.
Yeah. And thankfully, my mom and I had already booked the trip, and we said, hey, if I make it, I'm there as an athlete. If I don't, I'm there as a spectator.
Yeah, exactly.
The coolest senior trip ever.
Go learn some stuff too.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I was still training at the time because I had qualified for the World Juniors team, the World U20s team for the US. And so I was already in training. So it was an easy thing for me to be able to go out and compete.
So this year you wouldn't be able to go because we're not sending a team.
Yeah, I know. We've had a couple of years. I think there was another year that maybe when I was in college when they didn't send a juniors team for some reason. Can't remember where that one was. But yeah. It's unfortunate because it definitely is an amazing exposure and experience, but hopefully they'll make up for it in some other ways. Yeah. But I mean, that getting to go to the trials, like asking about like how the pros looked at me. I mean, I didn't know anything. I knew nothing. And I remember I showed up to the field wearing like a cute little summer outfit and my Birkenstocks to go and get my credentials. And there were girls out there practicing. I had no intention of doing any sort of pre-meet. I didn't know what a pre-meet was. You just show up to a meet and you throw. but there were people out on the field, and I walked out on the field at Hayward. I walked over to the ring, and I didn't have my throwing shoes with me or anything. But these girls were in line taking their throws. And when they all went out to go retrieve their throws, I walked into the ring and I just sat down in the ring and just felt it with my hands to get a feel for the texture.
That's awesome.
And like, could you imagine the craziness of being a professional or a high level collegiate at the Olympic trials, doing your pre-meet, the emotions and pressure of that, and seeing this little high schooler come in her Birkenstocks and skirt, and just plop her butt down in the ring to feel it for a second and walk away. Maybe that is intimidating. I don't know, but I
can imagine half of them were probably like, I get it. I would have been you if I was there. And the other half were probably like, get hell
out of my circle.
Yeah,
like, get out of my circle. I don't mind if we compete, but just stop getting in my circle. Like, get out of my time.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I didn't take anyone's time because they were out there retrieving their discs, but it was a fun. And then as I walked away from that, I actually, I had already committed to Texas, but I bumped into the Texas head coach at the time, Mario Satania, who was there with his athlete at the time, Trey Hardy, the decathlete.
Decathlete, yeah.
And I have always thought decathletes are so cool, and I so admired Trey and thought he was amazing.
I think they're the best athletes on the planet.
And I had met Mario, obviously, with my visits, but I had never met Trey. And I walk up past them and I wave, I say hi to Mario, and Trey says, Elena, I am so excited to meet you.
Wow.
And, oh my goodness. I was starstruck. And
you have the hearts in your eyes like you were a cartoon character at that point. Just
goodness.
like, my Elena.
Yeah. It was just the craziest thing. I was like, Trey Hardy knows my name. Trey Hardy knows my name at the Olympic trials. And it was just like, I was walking on cloud nine. It was the coolest thing to be recognized by someone of that caliber who was fighting to actually make the Olympics that year. And I think that's sort of a theme of, I've been to the Olympic trials now twice. This is my third time going this year. But the last two times I went, my very first time was to go and be a participant. The second time, the goal was to go and be a competitor. This time, I mean, the fact that I am in a position where there's even a chance that I could make the team is just mind-boggling to me. Especially, I know we haven't talked about college, but especially with how my college experience went, just to be in this position that I'm in now is just like so beyond, it's very in line with what I thought in high school, but so beyond where I thought I would be if you would have asked me, 2-3 years ago.
So before we jump in and talk about college, I do want to talk real quick about one of the reasons why you are on this show, and that is the Olympic Dreams Give, Send, Go, the crowdsource. So I'm going to put it up on screen here real quick.
Yeah.
This is one of the main reasons. Honestly, we would not have been able to get an athlete of Elena's caliber if it was not for this campaign. We've had some great ones, but, with the current pros, this is a campaign that if you are watching right now, please go and give. It is for them to have the money to go and compete. Let's go scroll through here. Let's find Elena. Where are you at, Elena? And it is for them to compete. There she is. Yeah, buddy. But it is for them to go and pay for their training, pay for a lot of, other things that go along, food, everything like that, and to help them out. Because, you hear Elena's going to make this team. I am manifesting it. And she's doing it in such a way that is inappropriate for a pro athlete. There is no reason why these pro athletes should have to not, fully be only locked in to training.
Yeah.
So
you shouldn't have to work.
Yep, on screen.
To be able to just train.
The Give, Send, Go, www.givesendgo.com/GBKDF. So I just wanted to give that shout out there. So Elena, let's talk about college.
Yes.
So in college, you did not have as much success, you said, as you thought you wanted to, right? Even though you walked away Big 12 champion and dominant in a lot
of record holder, right?
School record holder. So that just tells us your expectation, right? So what was college like for you?
Yeah. I mean, when you could probably guess from my high school statistics, I had my pick of the litter when it came to colleges, which, is a blessing and a curse. because, it's difficult when you have so many choices to narrow all of that down. But, I picked my 5 schools. I took my 5 official visits, and it was a big choice. I made a lot of pros and cons lists, and Texas had the most pros. I mean, I think I really wanted to choose a school from a holistic standpoint where if I got a career-ending injury tomorrow, I would still be happy there.
Right.
Like, I really wanted to choose that school. And to me, that was Texas. I had my reservations about the coach at the time, just because he was also a pole vault coach. And, I just wasn't entirely sure what the deal was.
Those damn pole vaulters, you and your Matt Ludwigs and all you guys.
I love pole vaulters. Y'all were basically my teammates in college, but I had never heard or understood the idea. My coach was more of a javelin pole vault coach than a shot put discus coach.
Yep.
And so I was a little bit hesitant about that, but I just loved Texas. I felt at home from the moment I stepped on that campus and met with the team. And I knew that's where I needed to be just to keep me happy. And so that's where I chose to go. It was weird because I almost felt like with the history of Texas track and field, I thought that there would be a sort of an intensity. And when I started with the program, it was pretty lax. It was pretty relaxed and not a lot of expectation, which actually sort of stressed me out because it was like, somebody should be like freaking out that I'm not doing well.
And I imagine for like the caliber of athlete you were coming out of high school, you wanted that pressure. You wanted that expectation. You wanted to be pushed because you had a taste of the Olympic trials and then you saw what it took to get there. So it's like, I'd imagine you going into college, you were hoping that you'd get that expectation level. You'd finally find out what a pre-meet is and like all those types of things and like get the training that you not for lack of skill from your high school coach, but didn't know, right? That's something that a lot of high school coaches don't know.
And I was a dual sport athlete up until mid senior year of high school. And so I was just stoked to train year round.
Yep. Yeah. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I also want to jump into, you talked about a little bit about college there and you said you struggled, right? So how much of that was your mental versus your physical? Because I think a lot of people, they know like, running and things like that, that's so much mental. And I think a lot of people look at the throws and it's like, be big and strong, throw big, heavy thing, throw far. But it's like, there's so much more that goes into, and me and Dave have gotten such an education from talking to a lot of throwers, and we're continuing with you. But how much of it with you was your mental versus your physical?
I mean, I would say now, like how I feel now about throwing and performance, it's probably like actual performance is 85 to 90% mental.
Yeah.
Especially on the day, it's so mental. And I mean, obviously you still have to put in a lot of that physical work to get to that point. But it really is like that mental aspect makes a huge difference. And even just how you're feeling mentally and your mental health impacts how your body's going to show up for you and how your muscles are going to react and how everything's going to work in that symphony. And so, I mean, it's massive. And I think in college, a lot of what I was going through was I didn't feel like I had that external pressure and expectation. And so I put that upon myself, especially in those early years. And it didn't work well for me. I also saw just so many people around me that I was above and beyond in high school.
Yeah.
Excelling, exceeding, throwing far, making nationals, PRing. And I was stuck in the same place.
Yeah.
I was in the same place in shot put and I was in the same place in discus, and I was getting nowhere and I didn't see a path to getting better.
So have you found that there is kind of like a symbiotic relationship to the physical and the mental though? Like,
of course.
Can you snap out of a mental funk if you just get that one good throw? Like if you get a good feeling, let's say you're walking in there and you're like kind of like Eeyore, the storm cloud, like
in golf, you just hit one,
and then boom, all of a sudden you get in the circle and for whatever reason, you just blast off a great one. And then it's kind of, does that pick you up, or is the mental sometimes too hard to overcome even with one great throw thrown in there?
Yeah, I think what I've found is it's difficult to even achieve those great throws when you're in a funk.
Yeah.
And I think for me, fixing the throw, like I just went through like this off season, this run up to this season has been really challenging for me. And I've been dealing with a lot of that mental like toughness side and being in that mental funk and finding that I'm doing all of this. I'm doing everything right. I'm doing all of this stuff and my body's not showing up and the throws are not there. And instead of trying to say, what can I try to do physically to change these throws, to make the throws better? I started focus. I recognized I need to focus my training on my mental side so that my body can actually show up for me.
Absolutely.
And that's a wisdom I didn't have when I was in college. I just didn't have that. And I don't know if that's perfectly aligned with what I was experiencing in college, but I think now I've been able to recognize when my mind is not right, when I'm not healthy in my brain, my body physically can't like reap the fruit of my labor. I can still put in that work and that work is still going into that bank, but it's not going to piece together if my mental side is not right. And so being able to focus on that and make sure that your brain is healthy allows your body to be able to show up for you in the ways you need it to in the throw. And I don't know if that's unique to throwing. I'm sure it shows up in a lot of athletics and in a lot of different ways. But I mean, you could look at, I think it was the last Summer Olympics we had in 2021 where Simone Biles got the yips. And what they call it in gymnastics, and she pulled out.
The twisties or whatever they call it.
Whatever. Yeah. Each sport has its own name for it. But I think there's been such a amazing sort of emergence of this topic of mental health and athletics. And people are recognizing, when that happens, when an athlete can't perform, it's not because they didn't put in the physical work or their body physically isn't there. There's such a huge mental aspect to it. And once you fix that, what I've recognized is the work you put in when you're not in a good place, it still is helpful.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to see the fruits of that until you can figure out the mental side of it.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So
what?
Go ahead, Dave.
What went in? So you're done with throwing in college. Was the plan to always go pro, or did you have any reservations? Like, were you, because you said how college did not go as you wanted. So was there a time where you're like, I'm just going to, stop this for a while? Or were you like, I just have to keep going because I want to know what I can actually do?
Yeah. Early years, that was always the plan. I don't know what happened in the middle, but I think it was sort of early COVID times. All of a sudden I realized I started getting towards my senior year and I was like, oh, I'm off track. Like all of a sudden I wasn't as passionate about it. I wasn't as locked in. I was thinking about what I wanted to do when I finished college, and it was not continue throwing. And all of a sudden I realized I sort of came back to those original goals from childhood.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to pass up this passion. I'm not going to pass up this calling. And so with that, like I sort of went into hyperdrive and I said, I'm off track, but let's get back on track.
And I envy you because it's so hard to turn it back on. Like, honestly, I went through that point in running myself. I was hurt a lot. And in college, there was a point where I was done. I was still competing. I was working my ass off, but I was running hard. But in meets, I found every reason to not run well. And it was every other reason. You know what I mean? And it was just, I envy you because you also were at the pinnacle, already competing at such a high level. And to be able to turn it back on is, it's a superpower. It really is. Yeah. It's not easy. So I do envy you to be able to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. And I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, the injuries. I think that played a big part into why I sort of lost that and started falling out of it. And it became easier for me to think about a life without throwing, is because I experienced so much injury. I had 5 years at Texas, and my last 3 years, all three of them, at some point in the middle of the season or by the end of the season, I was in a boot and on a knee scooter.
And it's so easy to make the excuse, right? It was so easy to sit there at that point and go, I gave it a good shot. The injuries did me in. I could have been better, but, and no one would have blamed you. No, you could have told that story and they could have been like, hey, I get it. You were great. You got hurt, blah, blah, blah. But again, to persevere, like, you had to find something out about yourself there, right? All of us can talk and say, like, when it's tough, we're going to do it. But like you did. And like that. So how does that feel? Like, is that something you can go back to every time it gets difficult now as a pro? Like when it was at my hardest, I pushed through. This is nothing. Keep going.
Yeah. I love that you asked that because I don't know that I have sort of viewed it that way today, but I think that that's such a great like proof point to look back on of, and the crazy thing too is when I made that switch in my brain and I decided, no, get back on track. This is what I want. I had very few people supporting me.
Right. Of course.
I did not have people saying, and I got hyped up. I got fired up. I was like, I need to figure out my team. I need to find my supporters. I need to surround myself with the people that are going to help me achieve this. And I was so passionate about that goal. And I went out and I talked individually to these people that I pinpointed to help me. And I got neutral reactions other than my parents who love and support me dearly. I got neutral reactions at best. And I actually got negative, doubtful, seriously reactions from people that I trusted and that I was coming to vulnerably with this goal. And
it's tough too, because it's like, they're looking at it, they care for you, they love you. And it's like, wait, you're going to become a pro track athlete. That's already box number 1 checked off for negative. You're going to become a thrower, box number 2 in terms of financial negative. Plus you're a female, doesn't get as much exposure in the throws and track. Box number 3. So like, they're probably looking at it going like, Elena, you're not you know what I mean? Like they had every reason to doubt you, but at the same time, I could imagine how much that hurt you to sit there and like, come on, guys. Like you've seen what I can be and what I can do. Like have my back here. I can only imagine like how that felt. Yeah.
It sucked. It sucked. And that all happened at the beginning of my last year in school at Texas too. And so I was like, ooh, shit. I guess it's me and my smaller crew than I thought trying to hit this goal. And I mean, I did not hit any of the goals I wanted to my last year at Texas. I had a great last year in the shot put, but I was trying to go pro in the discus and that didn't really get where I wanted to go. And I mean, so yeah, it definitely was interesting. And I mean, my original plan was that I was going to continue throwing at Texas. That was the goal. They had some really high standards. The rules there, at least at the time, where you have to have the Olympic A standard in order to continue training there post-collegiately, whether you're an alumni or not, which is pretty freaking crazy. Yeah. And as you guys probably know, they've been raising those A standards.
Oh, yes. They are tough. Yeah.
And so
I'm a person that I'm cool with it. Me and Dave have talked about this.
Oh yeah.
I actually like that the standard's higher.
I love
That's just me, because I think like, and I know some people are like, but what about the lesser countries that don't have a lot of representatives? Sorry, this is the Olympics. I'm sorry. This is the Olympics. If you guys can't send somebody for this event, apologies.
And you can get it off the rankings.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's the reason I love it, is because also you could have these people, and I mean we could get into all the complexities of this, but I'm like, I'm a left-handed discus thrower. I can't go chase some wind to chase a standard. I'm never going to find a ring that's set up with the perfect lefty wind to give me a bigger PR. It's never going to happen for me.
You're quite literally against the grain in every which way.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then that's totally fine. But when it used to be that you had to have this standard, it's crazy. But if you look at the rankings, I can show my consistency. I can show up in big ways and I can raise myself up the rankings in that way. And that's a much more attainable, accessible way for me to be able to make these teams than maybe just counting on one mark where you had one crazy far throw,
Right.
Yep. That's fantastic.
I want to ask you about this thing called parity and what they're doing for female athletes in sports. So can you please just kind of give us a synopsis of what that entails?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you haven't, figured it out already, I am so super passionate about female athletes, female sports, and especially businesses supporting women professional athletes. And Parity is just a really cool brand that I came across that connects businesses to female athletes. Yeah, you can see the numbers here on the screen. The amounts of athletes in different sort of represent these different areas. And it's really just a marketplace of connecting these female professional athletes to brands to run these campaigns and help put real money into female athletes' pockets.
Love it.
And yeah, it's been amazing. I've been able to do a couple of campaigns with them on social media. I even got to do a campaign with Microsoft, which is so sick and something I just wouldn't have access to on my own as someone on just hanging out on Instagram.
Right.
But I mean, if you don't follow me on Instagram already, be sweet if you do. But you'll notice I've really worked hard to build up. Awesome. To build up my brand, and I've really grown a following, and Parity helps me monetize that and sort of, build off of that brand that I've really built up and put out there and the community that I've built. So
I love that.
Just continue also supporting these companies in helping them understand how to jump on this wave of supporting women athletes. And they have a lot of research with that too. So just wanted to shout out Parity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like this, but I have a problem with these numbers. There are so many female athletes.
Yeah.
What the hell? Why aren't there more? This is like, I hope after today, I thank everyone for watching currently, by the way, anyone YouTube X, we appreciate you all.
Thank you.
But if all of you watching here, every single person watching here knows a female athlete in high school, in college, potentially pro. You want to help them? Here you go. Okay. And I know some people groan, listen, I'm a guy. I can't say I enjoy watching all female sports. Some are great, and the thing is, I'll watch some championships and things like that. But this is a way that you don't necessarily have to sit there and watch the events, right? If you don't want to, support them and give them the opportunity, give them the chance. Even if you don't want, there are other ways to do it. And it looks like Parity is something that can be that outlet.
Yeah.
So go ahead, join this community and help female athletes like Elena live their dreams, or even just have an opportunity to compete in these sports outside of at a school setting, right? Because, there's not a lot of funding, I feel like, in a lot of the female side sports, soccer has it and things like that. But basically, if you don't play in school, it's either gymnastic, dance, soccer, and those are the female sports outside of doing athletics in high school. So definitely Parity looks awesome. I appreciate that you brought it up. I think it's cool.
I love it.
And I think that, as a father, me and Dave are both girl dads. This is something that we can look into as our girls get older and, become more and more athletes.
And what I'll say and sort of challenge you on too, with the way that most people are viewing women's athletics right now too, is women, if you're looking at the
marketability
of women athletes, we have stories.
Absolutely.
We are welcoming and bringing people into our lives and sharing these stories. And there is so much more marketability to your stories than merely your athletic performance. And so that's another thing that's emerging in this idea is it's so much more yes, go to the games, support them with their sports. But when we're talking about the greater marketplace of professional athletics, there's so much more marketability within women's athletics than you would ever guess, and more than there is within men's.
Absolutely. So here's a question for you, Elena, and here's a big thing that I'm trying to ask. I think a lot of people ask, where are more women supporting more female athletes? I think we're starting to see it, but it's right now, it's generally with the guy side, it's a ton of men and a lot of women as well that support, that and love men's sports and support it. And I feel like on the women's side, there is not enough women that are supporting other women. They'll say a good game, right? They'll talk about, we want to, women have equal everything in this and that. And that's fine. And I agree with all that. But where is also the groundswell and the support for their fellow women outside of just the athletes, right? And there's plenty of former athletes that you can ask. Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, soccer players oh, are you watching the NWSL? No, what is that? Are you kidding me? That's your women's soccer league. Why are you not supporting that more? So what is the solution for that as you being a female athlete trying to get more female support for you young ladies?
Honestly, it all comes down to the visibility within the sport. You could say, oh, are you watching? You're not watching the WNBA?
Yeah.
You don't care about women's sports. You're not watching the National Women's Soccer League? But where is that on television? Yeah. Where is that on social media? Where is that on the streaming services? It's behind paywalls. It's on live
Problem
streaming.
we have with
We
track.
talk about that all the time. It's either Flow Track or Peacock.
You see that with track and field. And track and field is a little bit more nuanced because we're a mixed sport. And so, there's still the complexities of showing which events and the balance of male and female events.
Yep.
But there is like such a lack of accessibility. And I think you can look at the Women's March Madness tournament this year and you can see.
Oh, yes.
Like there was more viewership to the women's tournament than the men's tournament. And you look at that Final Four game between UConn and Iowa, it was the most viewed basketball game on ESPN of all time of the men and women.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
And I think we need more rivalries and bitter ones. Like whether or not Angel Reese said like, oh, me and Caitlin Clark are cool. I don't care if you're cool. I like the fact that it looks like you guys don't like each other. Like, and I think we need more of that. I think we need a little more, maybe not in track, right? At the sprinters need to stop.
Hey, I mean, you look at last year, I don't know if you guys saw, like there was some beef between Tara Davis and another, I don't even remember the other girl's name, another long jumper.
Woodward.
That brought attention to the sport.
Or Noah Lyles and Fred Curley going at it. So
and people were trying to create drama within the throws community. And it's like, whether it's real or not, like that's what people like. That's what brings people to the sport. That's what gets people interested. And I mean, you look at like professional wrestling, and
I love WWE.
It's not real.
Everybody is excited. Everybody is excited about Kerr versus Ingebrigtsen because they are talking shit.
Yeah, totally.
Yard Nagoose needs to jump in there and just say you're both bitches, just so he can get in.
Nice.
Yard needs to get in, but I think that's also a big issue in track and field. Everyone is too damn nice. There is too much of a community, and it's hard not to be because we all train in team sports. You can train in different ways, right? And you're doing completely different positions. And when you get to the field, those positions get combined in a smorgasbord.
Yeah.
In track, you train in your specific thing. You spend time with the same specific athletes at most meets, especially if you're at a higher level. You're all seeing each other. So it's hard not to get that camaraderie. And, we talk to a lot of the other athletes a part of the series, and they say, like, hey, we're all kind of friendly to each other. Yeah. And now, I thought that was cool, but now kind of part of me wants to be like, no, stop being friends. Stop cheering for each other. Yeah. Start being a little more mean.
It's a much less clear us versus them dilemma, especially with fans of track and field. Because even if you're a fan of a specific athlete, it's us versus all these other people and it gets confusing. So like what I think could actually bring that to track and field is if we were able to create like legitimate leagues where there's drafts and there's
God, yes.
We've been talking about this for
absolutely.
Listen, I'm hoping Michael Johnson's thing takes off because he has cachet.
Yeah.
He has backing and he's a track guy. So I'm really hoping that this can turn into something because like we found out when we had on Tanner that there was a league that actually drafted people that I had never even heard of.
Never even heard of.
Yeah.
So Elena, first ever here,
they have it in Canada. They do have a league that's going in Canada. I mean, it's it's not super high level, but they are doing that and making it happen. And so I think that's maybe a case study for us to look at and see how that helps with the general interest in supporting these
people. Have tried with like the ATL,
which the ATL is still going, I believe.
Right, but like you never see it, and. It's just, I don't know.
It's the money needs to be in the promotion as well as getting the execution, right? Yeah. You can have all the money to give prizes. You can have all the money to host the events and do all that. But if you don't have enough money to market it and promote the hell out of it and also pay the athletes to promote it, right? Don't just ask them to put it on their social media. Give them a reason to be passionate about it, right? So there's that. Now, Elena, I want a first ever thing on Talking to Nobles. Who are you calling out in USA that's around you and telling that young lady that you're going to kick their ass? Who are you calling out?
Oh my God.
Call out.
No. She's respectful. She's respectful.
No. Yeah.
You were just talking about how we need animosity, and here we go.
I know.
We don't need animosity.
It's tough, but I'm not going to throw the first punch. And who's to say I don't have my beef? You just have to figure it out on your own. There's some drama. There's some drama to making the assumptions. You never know.
I just want to see you walk by and just like swipe a disc out of a girl's hand. Just let me know. Just like swat it. That's how I'll know that you're.
Ooh.
Don't listen to him. You're going to get thrown out of the trials.
or you're going to win because you're going to get in everybody's head and you're going to be more pumped. Like, I'm thinking outside the box here. And here's the thing, ESPN, Elena Bruckner, drama in the ring. Look at what happened with her and so. Like
women's discus today. In the women's discus, we had
there we go
a little altercation.
Not only that, Elena went on to qualify as one of the top 3 in USATF. Like, boom! I just wrote the story.
Could you imagine?
Mess and backed it up.
Oh, that would be horrible if you're caught up in drama and then you go on to make the team. Oh.
If there's ever a fight in track, I'm going right behind Ryan Krauser. I don't care what.
Oh my God.
I don't know. Joe too. Joe Kovacs. I don't know, man.
Shot putters. I'm going behind the male shot putters. They are big dudes, man.
Yeah.
I put my money on the
Jordan
ladies.
Geist,
you know what? Some of the ladies can fight.
Him on. Jordan Geist, big dude.
Jordan Geist, big dude too. So we were just talking about type of things. So we were talking about making it popular, right? How do we make throwing more sexy? How do we make throwing cooler? Because one of the things is you guys are awesome people. We've talked to hammer throwers now and shot putters. Like, you guys are awesome, and it's fun to talk to you guys. And it's like a different side of track and field.
Their characters. I
always liked hanging out with the throwers in high school and stuff.
I mean, if you look like Elena has her nose pierced, Ely has all the tats. Like, you guys are cool. Like it's cool. Like, you guys are cool looking, and it's like, I don't know why there isn't more like look at these women here. They are strong, they are badass, they will kick your ass, but they're also beautiful, they are smooth, and like there's two different ways. Like, I feel like there's a lot of women coaching in high school at times that are like, I don't want to throw the shot put, or I don't want to throw the discus, I don't want to get too big per se, but you guys are beautiful athletes, and like that has to be seen and it has to be known.
So what are your ideas for how to make this a more desirable thing for a young lady? Like Dave said, like, I don't want to get big and strong, I want to stay, so what are your ideas to kind of try to entice these young ladies? Like, no, come throw, come be elite, come with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media has been a wonderful thing for exposure. Yep. Like, even just seeing the change since when I started college to looking at collegiate throws now, the wide variety of even just body types within the throws, I think is giving people an ability to recognize that, like, success is not one size fits all. Success does not look like one person. You can't look at someone and say, oh, well, that's what successful in this sport looks like. And so I think that's encouraging and makes it more accessible, because more younger athletes are able to look up and say, oh, maybe I don't look like that athlete, but I look like that one, and look what she's doing. Yeah. So I think social media has been amazing. And then I think also just in terms of making it more attractive to people, like, I am such an advocate for, like, bringing your personality to who you are in the throw. And I think all of that goes into that mental aspect. Like, I am at my best when I am joyful, bubbly, fun, happy, singing and dancing in the ring. Other people get in the ring and they're cutthroat, but that's not who I am. That's not my personality. Right. And if I can be true to who I am, that's when I'm the most successful. And I think some of the ways that I've really come into my own as a professional thrower, a post-collegiate discus thrower, is through the clothes I wear, which is like so silly and goofy to think. But when you're in high school and college, you have that uniform, you wear that uniform. Now, some girls do more things with their hair and their makeup and their nails. And I used to do like elaborate hairstyles when I was in college, but ultimately it's a uniform and it's what you're wearing. But now as a post-collegiate, I found so much freedom in getting to choose what I wear. And like, you feel so confident when you feel good in what you're wearing and you look awesome and you look cool and you're able to show your personality. I just had my season opener this past weekend and I threw the discus in a skirt. I essentially wore a skirt.
That's awesome.
Throwing, and I felt amazing. And I'm like, this is what I want. And I mean, I shared it on social media and I've gotten such great feedback. And it's just like, even little things like that, like going past the status quo is just like, it's so cool to see the reaction I've gotten from people. And I think that allowing people's personalities to shine, and by encouraging athletes like me to really hone in on your personality and who you are and share that with people, makes it so much cooler and more attractive to follow, because you get to there's a variance. It's not one size fits all. It's not these are shot putters. There's all these different people and personalities, and it's so much cooler to really build a fan base.
And I think that's fun too. And I think Serena Williams kind of set that trend a lot, right? In tennis, where Serena just didn't wear the same thing all the time. She wasn't always in always in a skirt. And I'm a big against the girls need to wear skirts in certain
100%.
sports things. Like it's insane. Like, women's lacrosse, they have to wear skirts, but women's soccer, they can rock shorts. Like in volleyball, they're wearing half tights. Like, why are there certain sports where it has to be that? I almost understand golf and tennis sometimes, like they are more like a country club sport. So they want you to be a little more, there's a dress code to getting into these places. That's a little more understandable. And Serena always had the skirt on, but she did different things with it. And I think, but with track, what is the code? Go have fun. You're, especially when you're a pro,
I'm not
you're the one that's in
right now.
That's really cool.
I have nobody telling me, I don't have Nike saying this is your kit.
Right.
And if and when something like that happens, if I get to be sponsored by some shoe brand eventually, awesome. I love it, but I'll find ways to work around and be really happy and confident and comfortable in what I'm competing in. But I think right now I'm in such a unique position. No one's telling me what I have to do, and I'm eating that up.
Love it. So speaking of sponsorships, I want to reiterate our position on sponsors. We would love to get sponsors on Talking in Ovals, but it comes with a caveat to anyone, and this may scare sponsors away, and I'm okay with it. If you are going to sponsor Talking in Ovals, you must commit to sponsoring one of our former athletes that we have that do not have a sponsor as well. Because the point of this show is not for Dave and I to get wealthy. That would be fucking sweet if we do. But it is not the point. The point of it is to gain exposure and to help the sport grow, to let people know that these athletes are also people, their stories behind them, the struggles and things that they're going through to stay at this level, and to ultimately end Elena Bruckner's and her likes from having to struggle as pro athletes, because it's insane. So if you are going to sponsor us, that's awesome. We'd love it. But consider sponsoring Elena as well, so that she can sit there and have her dreams. And there's something you're not supposed to talk to somebody about, but we're going to talk to you, your finances. So how are you paying for your career and for your ability to continue to train, to travel, to compete, to live, to eat? How are you doing all of this?
So I should mention, I live in the Bay Area in California.
So you're poor even if you have a good job.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm in New York. He's in Jersey. We feel your pain. We're right there with you.
Yeah, I am not in some podunk town in the Midwest, where rent is $350 a month. Last year, I'll tell you guys, my rent was $1,950, $1,950.
That's a mortgage. That's a mortgage.
More than a mortgage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
and
insane.
Gas over here is $5.50 a gallon for the cheap stuff. So that it is, my first year that I came out of college, I lived at home and commuted 2 hours each way, 4 days a week to come train up at UC Berkeley because I wanted to, I wanted to throw. I wanted to make sure this is what I wanted to do. It kind of was my gap year per se. And I was so blessed to be supported by my parents in a way where they said, hey, we're going to let you live above the garage for a year while you figure this out. But after that year, I was like, I had this dilemma because I'm like, I want to keep throwing, but I can't keep doing this commute. And I can't keep only throwing because it drives my brain crazy. So I was like, I need a job, but I can't have the time to have a job if I'm in the car 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. And so over the summer, that transition time after my first year post-collegiate, I was on the job hunt and I got a job up here in Oakland. And so I was able to afford to live up close to the track, to live on my own up in the Bay Area and also be able to train. And so I'm currently working a full-time job in tech, working in sales, and it is a lot. Like my day today, I've already worked a full day. I've already gone and thrown. We're on this podcast right now. And as soon as we hang up, I'm going to go lift and be back home by 9.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to jump on here. We appreciate that so much.
I love it. I needed to rest my legs anyways. But that's the reality. And my goal when I first started post-collegiate was I just want to get to net neutral. That was the goal, because it's not cheap to continue doing this, to do all of the travel. And then my second year, I started seeing a bit more success, but I was like, I'm paying for all this stuff. And if you go to a meet, you could go to a bronze, silver level meet, get one of those money-making places. And if you're lucky, that money you win will cover the expenses of the trip.
You don't even really get anything. It just pays for your competition.
Absolutely.
So is it frustrating too as a female thrower that even if you do well and you're kind of going to try and get the exposure, that maybe you're not getting it anyway? Like that would, I'm not gonna lie, that would piss me off. Like,
I don't think it's just female throwers. I mean, minus like one or two here in the States, it's all throwers, or it's almost all track athletes.
Started on hammer, not being in the Diamond League. Like that's a whole missed opportunity.
It's almost all track and field athletes. I mean, minus the top 1 or 2%.
There are a lot of, you can look on Instagram, and this is not me beefing with distance runners or anything, but
no, start it. Let's do it. Do it.
There are plenty of people that are getting sponsored by big name shoe companies that are distance runners that, are not making past the first round of Olympic trials, or not even making Olympic trials, and they're sponsored.
Yeah.
I got third place at the US Championships. I was on Team USA at a world championship, and I got nothing. The only difference in my life as a thrower from last year before making the team to now is I got an agent, which is great. That agent helps me get into track meets, but it doesn't change anything for what, and I have 65,000 followers on Instagram. Doesn't help me. Doesn't help me.
I think one thing
I'm so much.
One thing we need to do for the throwers is raise awareness of how difficult what you guys are doing in terms of, because people understand how hard it is to break a 4-minute mile if you're a guy. So when you have a guy that breaks a 4-minute mile, that's a huge deal, right? It's not as big anymore, but still it's a huge deal. But it's like, and they understand, like, women running like a sub 220 marathon, like incredible, right? Like, but when you look at the rows, number one, it's in meters, and Americans are stupid, me including, which we don't do that conversion in our brain. Yeah. So it's like they don't understand. They're looking at meters. They're like, okay, Europe, go away. And that's number one. And number two, there aren't, like, outside of looking up potentially maybe a record, a lot of the laymen don't understand what those big hurdles in the distances are in terms of throws. Like I knew in high school, freshman year, I wanted to break 5 minutes, and then 4:45 was the goal, 4:30 in the mile. Like there were things that you knew if you were in that niche, and it became more popular. So I don't think that there's enough awareness of knowing what is a good throw and what's a good mark. If I'm seeing a thrower in high school, what is good for them? What's exceptional? And at that level, like there needs to be more awareness of what those marks are on the throwing area.
And also the layman has no idea like how heavy a shot put is. I always say, go to your local bowling alley, get a 16-pound bowling ball and see how far you can throw it. It's not very far.
No,
and that could be a cool event too. See if a bowling alley will let you guys take it, put a bunch of pads down, and have people try and throw their balls. Take a 12-pound, take a 16-pound ball, and have them try to throw it and see how far they could throw a bowling ball. And have you
put it,
throw it. Put them do whatever however the hell they want to do it, but just see what they could do. And I think it's we say to Dave, and we said it to everyone, there needs to be, your social media presence is good, but I think there needs to be some goofiness involved to get people to really look at it. Yeah. The TikToks that are funny that people watch and reels that they watch are usually either goofy or super informative.
Yeah.
But I think it's a combination of both, of like letting the layman know what is a special throw, right? Because outside of that, if we didn't know, the layman's will see like, oh, your places, you're obviously a good thrower, placed third in the nation. Outside of that, they see your number and there's like, I guess that's good. She placed third. I don't know what it is. So I think the combination of like allowing the people to understand how difficult what you do is, and also understand what is a good mark and what's an exceptional mark and what is. And I think that would be a huge deal in terms of when people see like, oh, I guess Elena didn't throw well that meet. But then you sit there and it's like, oh, but she's still above the absolutely elite level mark, just not good for her. Like, I think that would go a long way in terms of allowing people to understand it.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, I have to go. I'm very, very sorry.
Yes.
But Alex will definitely finish up. It's been a wonderful meeting you, Lena. You have 2 new fans. I cannot wait to watch you compete this whole summer.
Yep.
I'm going to be glued. I just hope that I can find where you're actually throwing somewhere on TV. But once I find it, I'm going to be watching. Thank you for all that you do and for the sacrifices that you make so that you can actually get your actual dreams. And that's something I don't think enough people do. People just give up out of a lack of convenience or whatnot, but you are going for it and fighting for it. So it's been wonderful talking to you, and best of luck.
Thanks so much, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. We'll see you next week. Bye, buddy.
Bye.
So one thing I want to ask you, Elena, and I think it's something that's important for people to know. Outside of work, outside of training, do you have friends? Do you have a love life? Is it possible with all the things that you're doing? Because like these are things that, it's tough to balance when you have kids and have a job and you're not trying to be an Olympic athlete. What is your social life like in terms of, and how much you have to sacrifice it in order to go and say, oh, you have a wedding, but I have a meet. Sorry. And it's like, so what is that like?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. And I mean, I think I'm going to bring it back to that like mental health side of things again, too, is like, you have to figure out what works best for you. For me, it's worth it I practice on Fridays. I go to work and then I practice on Fridays, but sometimes I go out on Thursday night to go line dancing with my friends from work.
Nice.
Does it sacrifice my sleep a little bit? Yeah, for a day. But that's something that's going to refresh me in a way that allows me to still have fun in life, because it's like I've gone through so many times where I was so driven and focused that I missed out on so many other aspects of life. And I am so much about like the bigger picture and the holistic view of your life that, when I talk about doing track, it's like, yes, I do it professionally, but ultimately it's a hobby that I happen to get paid for. Everybody does hobbies. Not everybody spends an extra 20 hours a week on their hobby.
Nonsense. Because it should be you should be able to do these things on the side in your penthouse that you go to after working out. There is no reason why one of the nation's and world's lead throwers has to work a real job outside of the fact, unless you want to. And
all I'm asking is to even just work a part-time job. Let me work like 3 hours a day just so my brain doesn't go crazy. But yeah, it's tough. But back to the social aspect. I mean, I think it's just about prioritizing what you do and trying to make time when you can. And I just say yes. There's a lot of times when I can't say yes. And so when I can, I challenge that part of me that wants to just lay in bed at home. And I say, no, say yes, because you can do this. And so I think that's, it's been fruitful. It's been great. Thankfully, I have, pretty much all my friends come from work, throwing, and church. And so I naturally come across them in my normal circle. And so that helps. Usually spending time at work isn't necessarily social time, but I find my little blocks.
It's like the movie Yes Man. Like you say yes to every single thing with Jim Carrey. And also, so one thing I want to bring in now, neither here nor there what anybody thinks of Joe Rogan. But one of the things that I've heard Joe Rogan say, and I don't listen to him all the time, only if there's someone cool on there. But one of the things that he talks about is, obviously the guy's in great shape. He does a lot of MMA and stuff like that. One of the things he talks about is doing the difficult things and how there is 2 people inside of him. And I think this is real, where there's the one that's saying, no, you could do it. You don't have to do that. You're good. And then there's the other one that you kind of have to train to take over and be like, no, little bitch, get up and do it. And I think that also comes with the discipline of having a social life, not only being an athlete, but the discipline of like, just because you go out tonight, you don't have to go crazy, but just because you go out does not mean it's going to ruin everything. Go and do it. And I think it works in both ways where
100%
it can be too driven. There is being too driven to do something. And I think that it is important, like you said, and I think we need to strike a balance. I think it's great that there's the mental health awareness, but then I also think we also need to sometimes bring toughness back as well. And I think there needs to be that balance of toughness and mental health. And I think that some athletes, and not at the pro level, maybe more at like the high school level where it's being noticed, are kind of falling back on that, where it's like, no, it's time to be tough now. Like there are certain times where you have to buckle down and be tough. And then there are other times where, yes, you need to acknowledge your limits in mental and stuff. And I think that it's gone in the pendulum now, and it's not a bad thing that it's gone to the pendulum of only mental health, but I think we need to balance it back. And I think you're a good example of trying to find that balance of when to be tough and push and when to kind of let the walls down and, focus on mental health.
And there's a difference between mental toughness and mental health.
Yes.
And I think that's also understanding that difference, and that clarity is it, because there are so many times just that mental toughness and discipline where I have those two voices in my head. I get home from work or I get home from training and I sit here and I'm sitting on the couch or I'm laying in bed and I'm like, if I don't leave in the next 2 minutes, I'm not going to be able to finish my workout before the gym closes.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't want to get up. I don't want to go. Or there's, I don't want to do this final exercise. I don't want to do this special strength. I don't want to take these last few throws. And you have to sit and you have to check yourself, because there's times where you're like, no, like my body's not okay, or, this is the right choice. But then there's times where it's like, I'm being lazy. I need to get my butt up and I need to go get it done. And practicing making that choice, that hard choice in those moments, is what builds that mental toughness. So you can look back at it and be like, I made these choices. I am disciplined. I can do hard things. And I think that's like my little mantra I say in my head is like something as simple as saying, I'm going to go run the 400-meter lap that I'm supposed to do before practice. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. And as I'm doing it, I just say over and over in my head, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. It's a 400-meter lap. It's not that hard in the grand scheme of life, but making those little choices that you don't want to do, I can do hard things. I'm doing hard things, does wonders for building up that mental toughness and mental strength.
And it becomes a habit, right? And it becomes a habit when you sit there and you keep on defeating that side that wants to be, and I'll tell you right now, Elena, enjoy it while you still have that drive. Because once you're done, it is so easy to be like, I'm not training for anything.
Yeah.
I'm not training for anything. I'm not worried about anything. And, when you're a NARP, a non-athletic regular person, it's like, yeah, I could, but why would I? And you have to keep that drive. And also to what you said with the pain, when you're an athlete, when it's good pain from working out versus, okay, potential bad pain, limit this, right? Yeah. And it's, and the thing is, and sometimes you try to fool yourself, like, ooh, that tweak, I've hurt that 9 years ago. It might come back. And it's like, no, just do it. Stop it. Like, so I think that, you're really cool in the sense that you seem to know your limits, but also know that you can push them and you're trying to push them in a healthy way.
And I think a lot of that just comes from the wisdom of my life experiences within track. I mean,
all the injuries.
All the injuries, all the different coaches, all the different, training experiences, locations, everything. Like it came with time. And I am really happy and proud of the place that I am at now, that I'm with a coach that gives me autonomy.
So where are all the locations that you've had to travel? So talk about that. Where are all the locations that you've had to travel in order to continue to live your dream?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started throwing when I was in Wisconsin. My family moved to California. I was doing high school there. I went and trained in Texas for 5 years and then moved back here and lived in Morgan Hill, which is south of San Jose, and then moved an hour and a half north up to Berkeley to live here to train. And I mean, I think over the years, I've probably had 5-6 throws coaches. And, so I'm very happy with where I'm at now. And I feel very confident that this is where I'll be for the rest of my career. Not necessarily locationally. You never know where a college coach is going to end up, but definitely like I ride with Mo. He's great. He's been awesome. And it truly is a partnership. And that's what I've needed, is a partnership, because he recognizes the experience that I have in me. I am an expert in Elena. I'm not an expert in discus. I'm really good, but I'm not an expert. But I'm an expert in Elena. And he takes that expertise and says, if we're trying to make Elena the best discus thrower, she's an expert in Elena, he's an expert in discus. How can we partner in creating that? And that's been amazing.
So one of the things I want to bring up from the conversation we had earlier, and I was curious about this. So it loses me, your friend in high school that pushed you, her name.
Yeah.
Rana. Did
Yeah.
you find that losing Rana was much more detrimental in college than you knew, to not have that person there to push you every step of the way? And I guess you were expecting the coach to be that person and they weren't. Like, did you find that when you lost that, it was, you guys leaned on each other so much that it was hard to not like replicate that? And now that you're back in that situation, does it kind of feel like the coach has become your Rana again? Like, because it seems like she was super integral in high school, that you guys were both so integral to each other's success. And it seems like in college, you didn't have that. And yeah, you're building friendships, camaraderie, but what you had with Rana was special, obviously. And it seems like now you seem like you're right there again.
I didn't realize we'd be doing therapy tonight. You're helping me realize all these things. I never even thought of it that way. I never even
hope it helps. I hope I don't ruin you now.
No, it's great. It's so helpful. I really never even thought of that aspect of losing Rana. Yeah. And I mean, she left high school 1 year before me, so I didn't have her my senior year, but her and I had developed these other athletes below us that I still had that teammate. And that is spot on, that when I got to Texas, I didn't have that. I didn't have a teammate. I didn't have a training partner. And it's interesting because I don't have like a discus training partner here with Coach Mo, but I have hammer throw training partners. Yeah. I have girls that throw hammer that have the same goals as me, that have the same drive as me, and we're all in it together. We're not in the same event, but they're my training partners. And yeah, I think you're spot on. I think I missed that and I didn't have that. And I'm going to go put that in my journal now.
I made the journal.
Yeah, it's great.
So, and I think it's one thing that you're bringing up to a lot of athletes, that in track seems so solitary in all the events, right? It does not have to be solitary. This sport that you can share, you can lean on each other, and that's okay. Yes, what you're accomplishing is on your own, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay to want to lean on others and support each other and things like that. And I think that is very important. And I feel like you're fortunate that as a pro, you have found a group of people, because that's another issue with pros in track and field. There are very few teams, and you're doing what a lot of people do. You have to hopefully latch onto a college. Hopefully that college allows you to stay there. And that is another issue with pro track and field that, hopefully this show is something we can help remedy. Creating legitimate teams where you're all pros, you have your own training facilities, and you show up with the same people all the time. You're paid to be there. And, you can sign contracts and leave and go to another pro team that you think is better for you. And I think that is something that needs to be done. And that comes with the money, that comes with the exposure. But you are such a personality and such a, good athlete, awesome person, that you're one of the people I think that we need to bring to the forefront of the sport. I think you would be, so awesome. And I know you're trying to. So we're pumped to support you here. So before we jump out of here, I have two more questions. One, is there anything that you guys would like the fans to know that we have not talked about here yet?
I think nothing like major, but just for me, like everything I do in track is not about me, and it's not for my individual or personal gain. 100%, like I just want to share, I'm a Christian. I 100% believe that I am in this sport for a reason. Yep. And it's taken my whole life to figure that out. And it's not for my own personal gain or my own personal success, but all of this exposure too is for me to be able to share the love and joy of Jesus. And I come across people all the time. They're like, you're so joyful, you're so happy, you're so bubbly. And like, that's where it comes from, because also in track and field, in any sport, like there's the highs, there's the lows. And I've, ridden that roller coaster emotionally, and I still do. But like understanding the true why, and whether that's your faith or whether it's something else for you, but figuring out your why is what's going to carry you. because you can't control what's happening. You can't control your circumstances all the time. You can't control how your competitors do.
Yep.
But understanding your why, I think that's what really can allow you to have longevity in what you're doing, and whether that be sport or whatever you're off to next. And for me, that why truly comes from, my relationship with Christ and the joy that I've received, the joy and love, and that I hope to share with others.
That's awesome. I love that, and, I'm a Christian too. And I said today, like, one of the jokes is that, like, during the eclipse today, Jesus is just going to show up in the middle of it and just be like, guys, 2,000 years, what have you done? Like, you 100, build another boat, Dad, do it again. They broke the covenant. You're cool. Like, I like, that was like, but it's like, and it's awesome that you feel able to express yourself. Right. Because that's, to me, like, as I'm a Christian, I'm openly a Christian, but it's like, in order to be able to sit there and openly express that, you found Jesus, you're living for Jesus, not for yourself. Like, that's big. That's big. And I feel like that's a weight off your shoulders. And, it's not for everyone, but I think it's awesome that you can express yourself that way and that you're not fearful to do it. That's great.
Yeah. And whatever it is, I think it's just, we're all going to be most successful and happy when we're true to who we are.
Absolutely.
And so, whether that's your faith for you or something else, I think figuring out that why just allows you to compete and express yourself in life freely.
Without a doubt. So the last question I want to ask you, and it's a doozy, and we've kind of covered a whole bunch of things that maybe have jumped into this, but if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and all of a sudden, poof, the sport of track and field attracts more casual fans and the pros actually get paid, what change would you make in order to make that happen? It's a hard question. It
is.
But we have gotten some great answers. I'm pretty sure we're going to get a good one from you. I could see it in your eyes.
Yeah. I mean, I really think it would be finding a way to commercialize like a league.
Yeah.
A track and field league within the United States. Because that's the first question I get when I tell people I'm a professional athlete. They're like, is there a league for that? They're like, what is, like, we all know the NFL. We all know the NBA. We all know the
UFC,
WNBA.
PGA.
We have everything. We have USATF, but what does that mean? That's a federation.
Yeah.
That's not a league. And so if there was a structure to what we do, absolutely. I think that would be a massive, massive game changer.
I think, the USATF may be mad at me for saying this. I think they need to get out of the meat making. I think that them being involved hurts that chance of having a promotion.
Yeah.
Right? I think that the best way for us to go forward with that is to have them support a promotion like Michael Johnson's league. I feel like for that to be successful, USATF can't be a competitor. They can't be a impediment to him being successful. They need to be someone who throws their weight behind and says, okay, we're only here to sanction the meets and say, okay, this is a USATF eligible one. This is not for this reason. Yeah. And not be in the matchmaking because, there's USA Tennis, there's USA things. USA Tennis doesn't have any say in WTA. The World Tennis, like they're a promotion, whatever it is for fighting. The councils like the Nevada fighting, like they make the rules who can fight here, but they don't have a say in what goes on in UFC really. And those are all individual sports and promotions that I feel like we need to get to that point where USATF, World Athletics takes a step back. World Athletics doesn't tell Diamond League what to do. Diamond League does it. World Athletics supports it. Like that's really what it is. And I think that's where the league would be successful is, and I don't know if they're going to do this because there's a lot of money made by USATF people, right? And I understand. But if you want the sport to truly grow, if that's your goal, I think they need to take, like I said, a step back. They can still make their meets. That's fine. But they should throw their weight behind a league and say, hey, we're sanctioning these meets. We're not running them. That is all Michael Johnson's promotion, which should be called the Golden Boot Track League if I'm just throwing that out there. But all Michael Johnson's promotion. And, here it is. Like that's where I see the role of the USATF. I don't want them involved in making meets anymore. I want a promotion who could pay the athletes independently, not having to rely on, what sponsor is going to pay here? No, it's a promotion that's doing it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely. Oh man. Well, I hope I'm still in the sport when some of that comes to fruition, but even if I'm not, I hope I can help everything is about how can I make this better for the next folks coming up.
And
You
that's
know,
all
I would love to be able to experience it, but if I can do something to help make it better for the next folks, it's a win.
Hey, if there's anything that, you know, we're trying to do here is to make sure that happens as quick as possible. Like our main goal for why we started doing what we do in this show is because there is no exposure. There's very little outside of, you know, Noah Lyles, Sidney McLaughlin, like, you know, Jakob Ingebrigtsen. We can name them probably on two hands. The track and field athletes that people know, and it's a shame because you guys are the best athletes on the planet and you deserve it. And whether, you know it or not, you are one of the best athletes walking around now. So you guys should be recognized that way. So Elena, thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast.
Yeah, I had an awesome time, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Again, she is Elena Bruckner. She is a pro shot put and discus thrower. She is someone who I think is going to make the Olympics. I'm proclaiming that again right here. And I know it's putting a ton of pressure on her here, but it is someone that is going to make it. So I want to once again share real quick the trackstar.me Olympic Dreams Give Send Go. If you can, please give to this. You know, I'm not begging. They don't need anyone to beg. They're amazing athletes, but you would be helping out the athletes involved here in order to get them, not necessarily get them to the Olympics, but give them the ability to pay for a way to continue to train. If one thing you've heard about this series, every single one of our individuals is absolutely grinding in order to get to where they need to get to. And they shouldn't have to be that way. They should be able to just focus on training. So please help give them the ability to do that if you can. $5, $10, doesn't have to be a ton. Every little bit goes towards these athletes. And it's 7 of them there, and it will be split between them. So help them out. It would mean the world to us here and to them because they're fantastic and they do deserve it. And lastly, you wanted to talk a little bit about Fiber Sport Discs. Do you want to give a little shout out to them?
Yeah, just quick shout out. If anyone out there is a thrower, thinking about throwing, actively throwing, maybe you're a master's thrower. I have been using the Fiber Sport Discuses for, I guess, the last 3 years now.
Here's their website.
And they've been amazing. Yeah, these look awesome. I mean, I've tried so many different brands too, and I think it all kind of blends together, but Fiber Sport feels the best in my hand. I've really enjoyed using them. They're reasonably cost and they're here in the US, which is great too. So if you're looking for some discs, they've got lots of different levels too for professionals like myself or just people starting out, but definitely check them out. Fiber Sport's been great.
So yeah, Fiber Sport, where you at? She's gave you a shout out. Let's get a sponsorship here. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. But once again, this is Talking in Ovals. I know Dave had to jump out early, but Dave will be back with us. We'll be back. We're continuing the Trackstar.me Olympic Dreams series again next week. We're having on, I can't, what was it? Hope Bender? I hope I didn't screw your name up, Hope. This is me not being prepared, being a terrible host. Hope Bender. Yes, we're having on Hope Bender, a multi-athlete and Olympic hopeful. So we'll be pumped to talk to her. And once again, if you want to go find Elena, go to her Instagram, at Laney Bruck. I will put that back on screen. Awesome. Go follow her, make her have more than 65K. Let's get her to 100K and let's do that. And go support her, go find out where she's throwing and go on the Olympic Dreams website and go support there. Once again, we're Talking in Ovals. Go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. Smash that like button if you're on YouTube. If you're on X, Twix, what I like to call it, give us a repost, retweet, whatever it is, and go follow us there. So once again, thank you so much, everyone that was watching. We will be back next week, everyone. So long, all.